Welcome back to the Thoughtful Hour series, reading from the booklet The Sufferings of Christ by E.G. White. Day 5. The disciples roused from their slumber to find their master standing over them in a state of mental and bodily anguish, such as they never before had witnessed. They saw the grief and agony of his pale face and the bloody sweat upon his brow, for his visage was so marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. The disciples were grieved that they had fallen asleep, so that they could not pray and sympathize with their suffering Lord. They were speechless with sorrow and surprise. The suffering Son of God leaves his disciples, for the power of darkness rushes upon him with an irresistible force which bows him to the earth. He prays as before, and pours out the burden of his soul with stronger crying and tears. His soul was pressed with such agony as no human being could endure and live. The sins of the world were upon him. He felt that he was separated from his Father's love, for upon him rested the curse because of sin. Christ knew that it would be difficult for man to feel the grievousness of sin, and that close contact and familiarity with sin would so blunt his moral sensibility that sin would not appear so dangerous to him and so exceedingly offensive in the sight of God. He knew that but few would take pleasure in righteousness and accept of that salvation which at infinite cost he made it possible for them to obtain. While this load of sin was upon Christ, unrealized and unrepented of by man, doubts rent his soul in regard to his oneness with his Father. In this fearful hour of trial, Christ's human nature longed even for the sympathy of his disciples. A second time he rose from the earth and went to them and found them sleeping. This was not a deep sleep. They were in a drowse. They had a limited sense of their Lord's suffering and anguish. In tenderness, Jesus stood for a moment bending over them and regarding them with mingled feelings of love and pity. In these sleeping disciples, he sees a representation of a sleeping church. When they should be watching, they are asleep. Watch ye, therefore, for ye know not when the master of the house cometh, at even, or at midnight, or at the cock crowing, or in the morning, lest, coming suddenly, he find you sleeping. The church of God is required to fulfill her night watch, however perilous and whether long or short. Sorrow is no excuse for her to be less watchful. Tribulation should not lead to carelessness, but to double vigilance. Christ has directed the church by his own example to the source of their strength in times of need, distress, and peril. The attitude of watching is to designate the church as God's people indeed. By this sign, the waiting ones are distinguished from the world and show that they are pilgrims and strangers upon the earth. How cruel it was for the disciples to permit sleep to close their eyes and slumber to chain their senses, while their divine Lord was enduring such inexpressible mental anguish. If they had remained watching, they would not have lost their faith as they beheld the Son of God dying upon the cross. This important night watch should have been signalized by noble mental struggles and prayers which would have brought them strength to witness the terrible agony of the Son of God. It would have prepared them, as they should behold his sufferings upon the cross, to understand something of the nature of the overpowering anguish which he endured in the Garden of Gethsemane. And they would have been better able to recall the words he had spoken to them in reference to his sufferings, death, and resurrection. And amid the gloom of that trying hour, some rays of hope would have lighted up the darkness and sustained their faith. This ends our reading for day 5 of the Thoughtful Hour series, reading from the book, The Sufferings of Christ. Please be sure to tune in for the next video, which would be the comments on our reading for day 5. Thank you.